Hello, welcome to the Everyman Puppet Theater video collection. My name is Laura Ann Ewald. I'm the founder of Everyman Puppet Theater and the puppeteer. Today we are going to make a simple rod puppet that is a pop-up peekaboo puppet. That is, it is a puppet that goes peekaboo. Very simple to make. You only need a few items. Most of these you'll probably already have in your house. You will need a sock, a long sock, and I'll talk about socks a little bit later. You will need something for decoration. It could be paint like this one is, or it could be fabric, felt, glue. You need something really strong to tie the bottom of the sock, and you need a tin can to wrap the sock around. And then something for their eyes and other decorations. So let's look at this. I have two of them here today. These are both very, I would say very old. They're at least 20 years old, maybe 30 years old, not sure. And you can see they can be a big can with a big ball, or they can be a little can with a little ball. And it just depends on, you want your ball to match the size of the opening in your can. The sock you want to be fairly long. Now, I happen to like the athletic socks, that kind of has stripes on them for your school colors. Those work great because then you don't even have to decorate the can because you already have colors on them. But other than that, we have a sock. You need a sock. Now, you need a long sock. In this case, I'm using one of my father's socks. My father has big feet. Okay? And these are in fairly good shape. They're not in terrific shape, but he got rid of them all because the elastic was too tight. This is exactly what you want for your puppet, is something where the elastic is too tight, because this is what you need for the top of your puppet. As you can see with this one, it's so old that the elastic is wearing out. It's getting really, there's not much pull left back into plastic. So what you want is something that has a nice solid elastic. And your ball can be a styrofoam ball. They're not inexpensive anymore. And I don't really like the new styrofoam balls. Let me talk about styrofoam a little bit. The old styrofoam balls, and I'll hold these up to the camera so you can see them, they're much denser. And you can see these are very sparkly. Now, the new ones, which are sparkly, they're not at all dense, and when you try to form them, like, push dents into them or eye sockets or something in them, they tend to just disintegrate and you get a big mess on the table. The old ones are really very nice. They're hard to find, so go to garage sales, especially if somebody's cleaning out grandma's attics, because she might have some crafts from 30 or 40 years ago, which I'm sure is what this ball is from, and they're very much nicer. You can put a lot more pins in them. They don't disintegrate, and they hold things shapes better. Here's a bigger one, and you could use this with a coffee can if you wanted to make a really big puppet. I can tell you the age on this one, though, just by looking at it. It was 19 cents. I guarantee today it would be about $4. So, but a styrofoam ball. You can use something like a wadded up paper towel. What makes that a little more difficult is that you have to somehow get a stick to go up into the ball, and that's why styrofoam works well, because it's stiff, and when I put the stick in, it will stay. If you use paper towel, you want to wad it in a really tight ball and put the paper towel in it and glue that all in together before you put the sock on, probably, and it'll be a lot more difficult to put the stick into the ball if it's not a styrofoam ball. So you could use like a tennis ball, except that you're going to have the same problem. If you cut a hole in the tennis ball to put the stick in, it'll wobble around inside the ball. So if you put a hole in both sides of the tennis ball and you put the stick all the way through it, say you have a toy rubber ball and you put a hole in both sides, then you could glue it on both ends and it would be stiff. But you want something that'll be stiff inside the ball. Now this is just a scrap of a stick that I had before. You'll want to sand it off to make it nice and smooth so it won't catch on the sock or you. And also you might want to sand the edges a little bit. I don't know if you can really see this. So that it's got a little bit of an angle on it, so it'll be easier to stick into the ball. But before we do that, we're going to want to put it in the sock. Now this sock of the pair was in better shape than the other one. So to get it in, I want to take it all the way down to the toe and then stick the ball in the toe and pull it around. You don't want to put the stick in first because you got to figure out where the ball, it's not smooth, so it's hard to get the sock in smoothly. So you want to make sure it's in place before you actually put the stick in it. Pull the toe all the way around it. Now in this case, it has a name brand on the back. But we can cover that up with hair. So I've got my ball and the sock. Where the toe line is, when you pull it around, you're going to get some slight ears, and that works too. For this one here, I had the ears kind of stuck out, and that's what I put the fake fur on, and then I painted the inside of it, so it became a part of the ear. So I don't want hands in the front, so I'll have that on the back. Now I'm going to want to stick a stick in this. But first, we have to put it in the can. And you put the sock all the way through the can. So you have the sock through the can. And then you're going to want to turn the sock inside out at the bottom. And this is a bean can, so green bean, or a baked bean can, so it's a little bit bigger than most. And it comes in like that. And you want the elastic then covers up the opening. And then you have your ball in your can. Now you're going to want to stick your stick in it. And the best thing to do is just trying to find the bottom. And then just sort of screw your stick in. Once it's in place, you're going to want to probably glue it in place. You don't have to glue it in place. At this point, I would probably take it out this way and see where it goes into the ball. And just put a bunch of glue in it. So if I take my stick out, I've got a hole in there. I don't know if you can't really see my hole in there. I have a hole in the... Now I'm using hot glue again. This is the Cool Temp hot glue. You don't want to use hot glue with Styrofoam. It will melt it, but you can use the Cool Temp glue. I'm just going to put a whole bunch of glue down in the hole. Doesn't have to be a lot of glue. And then stick my stick back in it. And that'll hold it solidly in place. Do a little bit. Now I can the heel is coming out the back here, so you don't really want to take it up high enough that you can see the heel. So then I'm going to put a neck on him. So I got to figure out what the front is. In this case, I want to do it opposite my label on the back, because I can cover up the label with hair. And I'm just going to pull it out like this, and I'm just going to pull it around to the back. So there'll be this big gathering in the back, but that'll be okay because we can cover that up with hair. And once we get it all together, then we have to put something around it. Now you're going to want to use something really strong. I have some twine here. You could use dental floss like we used for the string puppets. And I'm going to lay it down and get the knot as close to the ball as you possibly can and pull it really tight. And if it sticks out a little bit, well, you have an Adam's apple. I have a little boy puppet, he's an Adam's apple. And this is your basic peekaboo puppet. I've got a can, I've got the puppet, I've got the head, and I can go peekaboo. And now I'm going to decorate them. Now, different ways to decorate this kind of puppet. You can use paint. I used paint for both of these. And there are different kinds of paint. The important thing is when you go paint shopping is to find a fabric paint. My favorite for this kind of thing come in little bottles like this. They're different brands. This one's called Polyman. It's called Dimensional Fabric Paint. And this is great because you don't need a brush. You just shake it really well, take the lid off, and then squeeze it gently on. And as you can see in this one, I drew hands, hard to see them, I drew hands on the sock, and I drew a decoration around the can, and I drew his nose on, and his mouth, and his whiskers, and his ears even filled in. So that's what I did with just the fabric paint. There are other paints that you can get, though. What you want to make sure is that they're for fabric. This one is from, it's called Ceramic Coat by Delta, and it says painting on wood, paper, fabric, plastic, or leather. It's an acrylic paint, which means it's water washable, and it's meant for fabric, okay? This one here is, they make metallic gold. This is one called Folk Art, and they do metallic stuff and sparkly stuff. But again, it says for all porous surfaces. Porous being means something that can soak up liquid. That would be fabric. So that works for fabric. This little guy is a scribble. It says soft fashion paint. Soft fashion being fabric fashion. And it specifically says it's for fabric. And these little guys here, this is by a company called Liquid Tex Artist Color Concentrated, and it says for fabric painting. Okay, so as long as it has something about fabric on it, it can work. I am not going to use paint today because some of these take an hour to dry, some take a half hour to dry, and I assume that you guys don't want to watch my paint dry. So we're going to do it with fabric and glue. And you can use white glue with your felt. I'm going to use hot glue just to make it faster. When you're gluing your stick on your ball, you can also use white glue. Just fill it up with white glue and stick it in there. But then you have to let it dry thoroughly, which I don't have time to do right now. So we are going to decorate. I have to decorate the face and a little bit of the body. Now what I did for the body on these is I just drew the hands on. You can see I just drew the hands on, and that's basically all we're going to do for this one, except I'm going to be using fabric instead of... Now, you'll notice one of the things I'm having some trouble with, I need two hands, one to hold on to it and one to do something, and I need two hands to work, so I have to make a stand for this. What I did, I can take a cup, and I can put a cross piece in the top, and I can stick this in for my stand. Or as I did in this case, I have a box, and again I did a cross cut and put it in there. As with most puppets, you have to have a stand to display them on, but sometimes you need two hands to work on them as well. So if you take a cup like this, and I'm going to take just an X-Acto knife, and you get your grown-ups to help you with this, is I'm just going to do a cross at the top. With an X-Acto knife. And then I can just stick my stick into the cross, makes a hole, and my puppet can sit there so I can work on him. Not real stable, but better than nothing. Now, I'm going to go ahead and decorate him a little bit. I have some fake fur for hair. I have some funky green things. I don't know what this guy is going to be because for about a half hour, 45 minutes this morning, I went through my stash of stuff to figure out what I could decorate this guy with. Let me show you an example of my stash. Whenever you finish with a puppet project, and you've got lots of leftover pieces, get these zipper bags and put your leftover pieces in them. It does three things. It helps to organize it, it keeps it clean, and you can see what's in it. So I went through until I found one that had a whole bunch of green stuff in it that came from one of my other rod puppets. And I thought, well, I'm just going to use a bunch of this stuff for this puppet. I also found one with this fake fur in it. I thought, oh, I'll use that for his head. So all I did was go through my stashes, and I found some stuff, and I cut it out, and I'm going to put it on my puppet now. Now for his face, I'm going to go ahead and give him googly eyes. The thing about sock puppets, because they're on a styrofoam ball, you can actually give him eye sockets to put the googlies in so they don't sit out on the surface. So I'm just going to take my two thumbs, and I'm just going to push in a little bit so I can let my eyeballs go in a little bit. you figure out how big the eyeball is, the googly is, and you can use your thumbnail to make the dent. So, and you make it big enough that you can fit the eye in it. So I'm making an eye socket. Once I have an eye socket, again, I'm using hot glue, but you can use white glue. And I'm going to put the eye socket in. Hold on until it's dry. So I have one eyeball. And I have the start of another eye socket. So now I'll take my thumb and I'll get the other eyeball out. And I'll use my thumbnail to break down the... And if you make these what you think is too deep, don't worry about it, because you can just have a sunken eye puppet, which might even be kind of funny. See. I got a bunch of glue on there, and I'll put the other one in. And now I have two eyes. I don't know why I decided to go green with this guy, except I had all this green stuff from this other puppet I did. I have some eyebrows here, and this was a fabric that was it's like a tie-dye fabric. Again, I didn't buy it special for this puppet. I bought it special for another puppet I made. So I can go ahead and put those eyebrows on. Again, I'm using hot glue. And what I'm doing here, not only am I decorating the puppet, but I'm covering up the red line that I had around my puppet's face. Because the sock had a red line on it. Now I'm covering it up. When in doubt, just glue something over it. It's a good motto. Oops, I didn't cover that one up very well. Oh well. Didn't quite cover it all up, but and also didn't get any glue on this end of it. So, two green eyes, two green eyebrows. Well, they're tie-dyed eyebrows. Now I want a nose, so I'm going to give a little indent in the nose where I want the nose. And I decided I'm going to use a pom-pom for that. This was out of a Christmas package I got with all sorts of little red and green pom-poms in it. So we'll have a Christmas nose. In this case, I'm going to glue the nose first. And put the pom-pom on it. Now he has a nose. Now for my mouth, I cut out a piece of fabric that sort of looks like lips, but doesn't really. And I'm gonna fold it like this and glue it together so it kind of looks like a duck mouth. Again, I'm not making any kind of a special animal here. I'm making a fantasy creature so it can end up looking anything like it wants to look when it gets done. And since I think I want him to smile, I'm going to round off the corners of this so it looks more like a smile. I don't know if that really looks like a smile, but it's going to be close enough. Then I'll glue the whole thing on. So dressing this kind of puppet can really be fun because you don't really have any, there are no rules. I'm using green because I had green because I built another green puppet. But you could make it look like a dog or a cat, like this guy over here. You could give it fake fur hair. I'm going to give him fake fur hair, but it's not done yet. So now he's got kind of this funky overbite thing happening in the nose. Now, I want to put something around his neck. I needed this really strong string to hold it together, but I can cut the ends of this off. That squeaking sound is kind of obnoxious. And I've got this. This is what I made the limbs out of on that other green puppet I told you about. And I'm just going to see what this looks like around his neck and say, you know, that's pretty cool. He's got this sort of green thing going around his neck. Not quite long enough, but it will be made long enough. So now I'm just going to put a bunch of glue on it. Again, there's no rules. There's no right or wrong. If you don't like what you did, you can always cut it off and do something else. So he kind of starting to look like a clown, which I didn't intend, but that's all right. Now I'm going to put some glue on the back just so I can get the rest of this green out of the way. And cover up the back end. You're not going to see the back anyway because I'm going to put hair on him. So now he has a little green around his neck, and he's got this funky overbite thing going on his mouth. And he's got eyebrows and a nose. So what else can we do with him? Well, first of all, I'm going to give this thing a little bit of a haircut because it's hanging down the way. There. That's better. Okay, now I want to give him some ears. And I don't think I cut him any ears. I'm going to give him some hair, and then I'll give him some ears. I took this is fake fur. I cut it with, remember I'm going around a round ball? So I took this square fabric and I cut 2 slits in it so that I can round it over the top of the head. And I want his hair not to go down this way, but I want it to come over his face this way. So I'm going to put it so that his long part is coming up, so it looks kind of like that. Now, one thing about working with a styrofoam ball, which is kind of nice, is that puppets don't mind if you put straight pins in their heads. So if you want to, before you actually put glue on, if you can stick a pin in it to see if that's where you want it. So I'm going to put this on with pins. And when I get done with this, I'll be pulling all this forward. But I just wanted to get it centered. And so I'm going to put the 2 pins in front to get it centered. And now I'm going to go back here. And I'm just barely covering my Hanes label. And now I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to just glue it all over back here so I can lay it down. Lots of glue. And then I'm going to go under the edges here. Lots of glue. I don't want anything coming up. If you're using white glue for this, be careful because remember the sock is porous, and so you'll get all sorts of glue in it. You can soak up the whole sock, and it will take forever to dry. If you're using white glue, I would actually recommend leaving the pins in, so you have something else to hold it down. Now I'm going to go around the edge here that I missed putting it on. That's down. I'll go up to this side and get this side down. And then when I have the main piece of fabric on, in this case I'm going to pull my pins out if I can find them. The pins again were just to get it so that I could make sure it was centered before I started gluing it. Okay. Now, if I want to comb the hair to make it what I want it to do, and I want to cover all the edges of the fabric so I don't see the fabric, so I'm just going to put a bead of glue along the fabric on the sock, along the edge of the fabric, just a little one, and then I can kind of push the hair down on top of it so you don't see the edge of the fabric. Oops, I put glue already. He looks like he has a really interesting haircut. Now, I didn't cover up all of the red line with the center of my eyebrows when I put those on. But if I just glue a little bit of the white fur down on it, you still won't see the line. So he's got this really kind of fuzzy head. Now, the question is, can he peekaboo? Well, if you're making a puppet out of white glue, you can't test it yet because you gotta let it dry all the way. But I can go and test him, and he goes a little snug, but he'll go peekaboo. One warning though, if you use fake fur, it is going to shed for a while. That's just what it does. So he goes in like this, and he goes peekaboo. Okay, that works. Now, I want to give him some hands, and I want to give him some little bit on his belly so it kind of identifies him. In this case, all I did was put a little hands and a belly button. So I have to find his middle. I still didn't cover up all that red on here. I want to get that red line out of there. Yeah. Okay, so for my hands, all I did was cut it out of felt. Instead of drawing them on like I did with these, I'm just going to put these little hands on. And I will glue them completely on. I'll probably let the fingers up. If the fit is tight in your can like this one is, then anything you put on the body you're going to want to glue down really thoroughly so it doesn't get away. So there's one hand. And here's the other hand. And you don't have to make, when you're making hands, let me talk a little bit about hands on puppets. You might notice, next time you watch the Muppets or Sesame Street, look at the hands of your critters. Most puppets only have 4 fingers. They have a thumb and 3 fingers. Okay? These guys have a thumb and 3 fingers. Because like most parts of a puppet, you're giving the illusion of a hand. But it gets awfully complicated when you have 5 whole fingers. So a lot of times you'll just have a thumb and 3 fingers. And it works because it says, oh, okay, that's a hand or that's a paw. So that works. Okay, now I'm going to give him a little bit of fuzzy fur on his chest. I took the fake fur that I used on his head and I gave it a haircut. You can see that. So it won't stick out too much. So I'm just going to give him a little fur on his chest. And again, this is something I'll have to glue very thoroughly. Put lots of glue on it because otherwise it'll get taken off when I go up and down. Center approximately there. So now he has hands and he has a little hair on his chest. Just putting hot glue along the edges to make sure it's going to be stuck down all the way. I don't know how well this is going to survive going up and down. By the way, I do recommend the painting to you because the painting is so much quicker and easier to do. It's just that it takes time to dry. And as I said, I really like the stuff that's meant, the bubble paint, because you just, no brush is necessary, you just stick it on with bubble. And then like these, I think I'm going to give him a belly button. So do I have a green belly button here. I lost my green belly button. There it is. I decided to give him a green belly button. You have a green belly button. Yeah. So he has hands, and he has a little furry chest, and he has a green belly button. Now, to do his can, I'm just going to put some, I'm going to trim up his elastic. He has some elastic sticking out. Again, this is an old sock. I would recommend using a new sock. If you have a new sock, you can use. This is a very old sock. But to decorate his can, I'm just going to put spots on it. I used my hole puncher, and I just got out a whole bunch of spots. I'm not going to do all of these right now, but I'm going to do I'm just going to do some dabbing. Put my glue gun, do a dot, 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 And I'll do some black ones and some gold ones. I'm not going to do them all now, but you can see the idea here is I'm just putting dots on my can. So I'll cover the whole can with black and gold dots. So there he is, my peekaboo pop-up puppet. He has hands, he has his fuzzy belly, he has a belly button, he has kind of a duck kind of mouth to him. I'm not sure how that came out. And he's got fuzzy hair. Oh, I forgot something though. What am I missing? I miss his ears. How did I miss his ears? I don't know how I missed his ears. I cut ears for him too. They're sitting right here. I cut 2 long ears for him. They're like dog ears. So I'm just going to put those up. And that will help me cover up the rest of the red line on the sock. This is a weird looking alien. I don't know what it is. But the good news is it's a cute puppet. It doesn't matter what he is. Or you could just pretend he's a rock singer and he's got long hair. But you know, I cut his ears. I should use his ears. There. I still have a little red showing through, so let's put that in there. Actually, I think he's kind of cute. So there you have it, a peekaboo puppet. And make sure his ears are dry before I have him do his peek. We'll go down here in his can. He's a little snug fit. And come up. There he is. A little disheveled, but that's okay. That's what we are when we're hiding and playing hide and seek. And it's going to be a while before I get all the shedding done. But that's how you make a peekaboo puppet. Again, you only need a styrofoam ball, or some kind of a ball that you can put a stick in, a piece of dowel to put inside him, a tin can, a long sock, and I would recommend a knee-high rather than just a big sock. This was a big sock. I ended up with a lot of stuffing in there that I didn't need. If you have, say, a soup can and a small styrofoam ball, then you could use a lady's knee-high is a good sock to use, or again, an athletic sock that has stripes on it. That works too. You need some kind of string to tie the neck on. You need some kind of glue to glue the stick in. And if you're decorating with felt, you'll need glue to do that. If you're going to do decoration with ink, with paint, you'll need some kind of paint, fabric paint that you can use. But really, it's very simple and it's kind of fun to play with. And there you have it. There's our peekaboo pop-up puppet. Want to talk a little bit about the tin cans you use. You have to have something that you can take both ends out of with a can opener. They have the flip top kind, but that will leave a very sharp edge around it, and you can run into trouble. You can either hurt yourself on it or you can hurt your puppet on it. So you want to make sure it's the kind you open with a can opener, and you also have to be able to open both ends. And a lot of cans, you see nowadays, they have a flip top and then they have a rounded bottom, so they stack very well in the pantry. Well, that's great for stacking in the pantry, but not very good for making a pop-up puppet. So you want to make sure that you can go ahead and take both ends out. When you take the lid out, you'll have a little sharp piece in here. You want to use a file. Get a file from, somebody in your family's going to have a steel file that you can file down all the rough edges, because you want to make sure you don't have that little piece of tin sticking out where it can cut yourself pretty badly on it. So you want to make sure. And after you get done with that, you still don't want to rub your finger around the inside edge, because you still have something in there that could cut yourself with. So again, 2 cans, 2 ends that you can open with a can opener, and then smooth out the rough edges with a file. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you later in the Everyman Puppet Theater.